All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to class this morning. And I know a lot of people have questions about how come biology, HSB, and science is the same class, right? Because in school those are considered to be three different subjects. But the truth is, I only teach up to Form 3 biology, right? I go all the way for HSB and integrated science. But these three subjects have common topics, overlapping topics, okay? So that's why I put everyone here in the same class, right? Because in biology, HSB, and science, there are certain topics that everybody needs to know to build a strong foundation. And in case you're wondering what topic we're starting off with, it's a kind of mixture, but it basically deals with nutrition. Like to put it in one sentence is why do we eat food? That's basically the question we're going to answer. And I know some of you will be like, well, obviously we eat food because we're hungry, but that's not a scientific answer. The What does your body do with all that food? How does it process all that food? And of course, we know food has a lot of nutrients in it. You probably heard about it in primary school, because since primary school is part of the syllabus, it has things like proteins, carbohydrates, fats, but and a lot of other things. It gets more complicated than that. And of course, we'll be handling the more complicated questions today, right? So anyway, it's 9:05, a little after that. So let's get started with class. Um, I know that most people have already selected a team. You're already on a team. And the teams are doing pretty well. Most the scores are pretty close. So for those who didn't choose a team as yet, you can just let me know in the chat, quickly which team you want to be on. But if you already chose a team, you can't switch now, right? So mentally make or let me know which team you're on. It have red, blue, green, or yellow. I'm part of the green team. And I think right now, the red and yellow teams are leading, right? For those who want an idea of the scores, right? This year is the scores, right? The red and yellow team are tied with 84 points. Blue is 46, and well, green is 64, right? So that's the current standings at the moment, right? And we have a little game to play today, the card game, the card battling game. All right, let's go, let's go. Right. So let's start off our story. The main, I guess, protagonist, or if you want to call him an antagonist of the story, is this guy called Jimmy. Now, Jimmy, sorry, is a character I came up with. He is supposed to represent people that I have met in real life, right? And of course, everybody has met a person like this, right? You ever met somebody who just happens to watch a YouTube video or just casually heard something or they just went to a textbook for a few minutes and all of a sudden they feel they are an expert on a particular topic and they think they're a guru on that particular topic. And of course, when you already analyze it, they don't know anything. Anybody have a friend like that or know someone like that who thinks they know everything and basically everything they know wrong? And they love to give advice on what to do. But they're the worst person to listen to because they don't know anything, right? And that is who GB represents. That guy who we all know, right? And he's a fun character to have because he will be leading the story today, and he's going to say a set of nonsense. And we're going to try to explain why he's talking nonsense. And by discussing why he's talking nonsense, we're going to learn a lot. Okay? So he's a fun character to have. Jimmy. All right. So obviously, I had to change his name to protect the identity of the person he actually reminds me of in real life. All right, so let's get started with this, right? So Jimmy, I will tell you what to take down and what not. There's nothing to take down right now. At some point in time, I'm hoping you guys too have heard something. When it comes to food, there are two words, macronutrients and micronutrients. Okay? So Jimmy has heard these things. And we all know we get nutrients from food. When you eat bread or a piece of fried chicken or a slice of beef, right? That food is packed with nutrients. Now, I have no doubt you haven't heard the word nutrients, but what does macro and micro nutrients mean? Well, we have to break up that in what the word actually means. Macro means big, and micro means small. So GB actually has the basic idea down for once. Usually he's wrong about everything, okay? So macro means big, and micro means small. You see, when you're eating food, there are certain things you need plenty of. Your body demands that you eat plenty of it. Those are called macronutrients. And then your body needs a little bit of certain things. I'll give you some examples of micronutrients. Vitamins. I didn't have plenty different types of vitamins. When you all were growing up, well, you're still growing up, right? And you should, no matter if you get old, you're supposed to make sure you get things like vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin B. Now, your body doesn't need plenty of it. So you classify those things as micronutrients. In fact, things like I'll write it here, vitamin C, which is just one example of a micronutrient. If you take too much vitamin C, like you eat foods or you take tablets with too much vitamin C, your body really can't use all of it, and your body will end up disposing of it. Some examples of macronutrients, I'll just tell you right now, and I'll make it write it down in a little while, right? Are things like carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Your body, by comparison, demands that you have a lot of it, right? So, how much of you all, well, I don't know if you all do this, you're probably not super health conscious as yet, but I'm sure there are one or two health conscious people. You know, when you go to buy food in the grocery, yeah, like let's say I buy a can of beans or mac and cheese. I know you all love mac and cheese. You ever turn the box around and you read the nutrition facts? Raise your hands if you're the kind of person who does that. Like you like to see what kind of nutrition is in the food that you are buying to eat, right? I'm a person, well, I have to do that. When I get older, you have to do that because but a person my age, we have to watch our fat content. We have to watch my cholesterol. And, I have to diet, right? All old people do, right? And you should do it as a young person, but yeah, most people just let it. When they get older, you watch what you eat. So and this is just an example of what the back of a food label looks like, a nutrition facts, right? So don't take down anything here, but let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about the four major macronutrients. Remember, macro means big. It means your body needs a lot of it. Now, I will give you time to take down the table, but just listen to me for the time being, right? Let's listen. You'll get plenty time after, right? Your body requires four things in large amounts. Something called carbohydrates. I'll show you here about that. Proteins, lipids. Most people haven't heard the word lipids, but another word for lipids is fats. So you could think of lipids as a fancy word for fats. And yes, you need a lot of water. Remember they just tell you to try to drink about, what is 8 glasses of water a day, right? Yeah, you should at least. Now, if I were to ask you all generally, right, what foods contain plenty carbohydrates and what foods contain plenty proteins, fats, and water, but most people would be able to give me some examples, right? So let us get some examples going here. What sources of food, like what you need to eat in order to get carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and water, right? Carbohydrates, a good source of carbohydrates are things like bread and cassava. Now, you don't need to know a million examples for the exam. Usually in the exam, they will ask you like for a couple examples. So carbohydrates, foods that are filled with things called carbohydrates, and basically anything with flour, like bread, and ground provisions. Ground provisions are loaded with carbohydrates, like cassava. I love cassava. I don't know if you all like cassava. I love it, right? Proteins, that's the red item there. Proteins, you can get it from animal sources or you can get it from plant sources. A lot of people think you just only get proteins from meat. And that's not true. You can get a lot of protein from plant sources. And two examples of proteins are things like chicken and soya, even beef, lamb, fish, right? Those things are loaded with protein. What about lipids? Remember, lipids just means fat. So what are some obvious examples of fatty foods if it comes in the exam? Butter and cheese. Off the top of your head, that's probably the two most popular types of food that has fats in it. Now, a lot of people associate fat with bad, like you avoid fatty foods. And that's not really too true. You need a certain amount of fat in your body to be healthy. If you starve yourself and you don't have enough fat, you could actually become unhealthy. Well, we'll discuss that in a little while. And water. Well, some examples of water is bottled water or rain. Yeah, you could drink rainwater if things are hard. Okay, so those are some examples of where you could find carbohydrates. But what about uses? You ever ask yourself, like when you buy a KFC combo or a Royal Castle combo, right? Whichever one you prefer, right? While you're eating this delicious food, you ever sat down and thought, I wonder how much carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and water is in this delicious meal? And what are the uses of carb? You probably don't do any of that, right? You just probably eat it down because you're hungry, right? So carbohydrates are used to give you energy anytime you're feeling low on energy. The first thing your body does naturally do, it is you just instinctively try to find bread or sugary stuff like donuts and whatnot. They're loaded with carbohydrates, right? So carbohydrates are used to give you energy. Proteins are used to build muscle, right? They're used for growth. When I say growth, growth of tissue and muscle. And it also helps you repair yourself. Like let's say one day you get cut, right? Or you get damaged. Let's say somebody punches you really, really, really hard. In order to repair yourself, for your body to get to heal, you need proteins. Lipids are energy storage. Let me explain that. Everybody must have a backup plan, right? Like for example, everyone should have water in their pipes now. But as a safety plan, don't you all have water tanks at the back of your house? Well, some people have it in the front of their house, okay? What do water tanks do? When water goes or water locks off, don't you go get water from the tanks? The tanks is like a backup in case water runs out in the normal pipes. Fats is the same thing like a water tank in terms of energy. You see, your body, whenever it wants energy, its first preference, its go-to is carbohydrates. Your body prefers carbohydrates. But let's say one day you're starving on an island and you have no more donuts and you have no more pizza, no more bread stuff, and all the carbohydrates are finished. your body will switch on its backup plan. Lipids, the fat, all the fat that's stored in your body, the fats that you got from the butter and cheese before you landed on that stranded island, right? It will start to turn the fat into energy. It's your backup supply. Of course, you'll get some notes on that in a little while. I'm just introducing the concepts now. And water, well, you need water for anything that's liquid in your body. And the most liquidy part of your body is your blood. You cannot make blood without water. In fact, blood is mainly water. And it helps to dissolve things in it, like all your food, like a lot of food particles and nutrients gets dissolved in your blood. So your blood could flow around your body and deliver all of these dissolved nutrients to different parts of your body. But more on that later. Now it's just the basics. Now here's the thing. Whenever you eat carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, not water, just the carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, fats, you have something called a digestive system. When you eat food and it goes down into your stomach and it goes down into your intestines, you ever thought about what is the purpose of your digestive system? Why do we chew food? Why you have a stomach? Why do you have intestines, right? What your body does. You see carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. If you put them underneath a microscope, like a real powerful microscope, these particles are actually very large. I know large by comparison, right? They are too large for your body to make use of it. In fact, carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids need to be broken down into smaller parts. And only when it's broken down into smaller parts, your body can actually absorb all the potential nutrition from it. But the point is, carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids by itself are too large. So carbohydrates, whenever you eat bread and cassava and it goes down into your digestive system is like a factory that will break down. Well, what it tries to do, it breaks down the bread and cassava into smaller parts. It breaks it down into something called simple sugars like glucose. Let me just explain that sentence. When people hear the word sugar, you think about the sugar that you put in donuts, right? Or you put in ice cream. The truth is, there are many different types of sugars, right? I don't have time to list all, but it have things like sucrose, fructose, maltose, glucose, right? There are many, many, many different types of sugars, right? You're just accustomed with only table sugar, the one that you find in the kitchen. You see things, but the one we want to discuss is glucose. Your body will take all the carbohydrates it eats and break it down into a very small particle called glucose. And glucose is small enough for your body to absorb it. Okay? Remember, the purpose of carbohydrates is to give you energy. So this story has more to it. When you eat the carbohydrates and your body breaks it down into glucose, it will use the glucose to create energy. So some of y'all, if you're new to this topic, you're probably saying, well, how does your body take the glucose and give you energy? How? Right? Sir didn't explain that. He just told me your body does take carbohydrates, break it down into a smaller particle. We just call this mysterious particle glucose. But how does it take the glucose and turn it into energy? I'll get to that in a little while. All right. So what about proteins? Proteins is too large for your body to have any use for it. So when the proteins goes down into your digestive system, when you chew it and it goes in your stomach and it goes through your intestines, it will chisel it down and make it into a smaller particle. These smaller particles are called amino acids. Some of you all who are very accustomed with this topic, I'm sure you know about that. Amino acids, lipids, fats, right? Your body will break it down into something called glycerol and fatty acids. So lipids are large. When you eat butter and cheese, it's filled with something called lipids. But lipids cannot be absorbed into your blood. It's too large. It will clog up your blood if you do that. So your body uses, once again, its digestive system to chisel down and break down those lipids into smaller particles called glycerol and fatty acids. Now, this is a standard set of questions in any exam, right? What are carbohydrates broken down into? What are proteins broken down into? What are lipids broken down into? Take down everything on the screen. I've given you 5 minutes. I know some of you all started to write already, but I try not to do that. When I'm talking, listen. I will always give you time to write down stuff, right? So 5 minutes, guys. Take down this slide as neatly as you can, right? Now, everybody is going to move at a different pace in this class in terms of writing, all right? Obviously, I can't pace my class with the slowest writer. And of course, I'm not going to be wicked and move with the fastest person. I'm going to choose a middle ground, okay? So if you don't finish, right, writing the note, I will ask you to do either two things. You could screenshot so you can finish the note later on, or you could review the recording. Whenever you finish taking down everything on the screen, raise your hands so I will know how to pace myself. Right, you have about 2 more minutes. 3 minutes went already, right? Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of writing to do in this subject now, so, right? Now, I know some of you have lots of questions, like more detailed questions about lipids, carbohydrates. I read through the comments as best as I can. I don't want to confuse the classes yet, right? So I'm going to keep a certain pace as we go on, we'll learn more about the carbohydrates, more about the lipids. And eventually, I think everyone who sent a question, your questions will be answered eventually. All right. So remember that there are some people who are, they don't have the foundation down. They're brand new to the topic. I don't want to throw too much complex things out there and people get confused. Right. So just to answer one question that's kind of important, right? Whether water is a macronutrient or not, right? I guarantee you, if you go in if you have 10 different textbooks and you go to 10 different teachers, some teachers will say water is a macronutrient and it belongs on this chart. And then you'll have some teachers and books that say they just leave it out. They don't already mention it, right? So the community is divided on it, but I fall into the category where I do consider water a macronutrient. Okay. So don't let it worry too much because when the examiner phrases the question, right? He or she will most likely phrase the question like this. What are three examples of macro? They'll tell you the amount. So if the question says list three, well, then you go with carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids to be sure. If they say state four, well, then you just include water. So the questions will come straightforward. You'll be able to work your way around it, right? So don't bother too much about it. Okay. All right, let's get ready to go. Next slide. Okay. Right. If you're not finished, do not worry too much. So where do we get energy from? I'm sure Jibby has something to say on this. Let's see what Captain Jibby has to say. Jimmy says, so when we eat food, the magic elves that lurk within the shadows are pleased and reward us with magical energy. My mommy would never lie to me. All right. So that's just Jimmy's explanation of where energy comes from. Magic, right? Not even magic, magical elves that reward him. All right. So and that's the elf there that GB probably sees. I don't know what type of medication he is on, right? But obviously, that's not the story. We all know energy has something to do with carbohydrates, and it has to do something with glucose. Okay? So let's see that story, the real story. Now, there are two types of respiration. Big word, right? So never explain what respiration is. Aerobic. Where Sir get all of that from? Right? Let me explain this. Remember how we said we need energy and our body needs to make energy? Because without energy, you can't think, you can't run, you can't jump, you can't wake up early to walk to your seat to come to class. Yeah, without energy, your heart cannot beat, you can't breathe in and out. You need energy for all of those things. Respiration is just a fancy word for how your body makes energy. This just means how your body makes energy. And And when somebody makes a cake, you call that baking. If somebody makes food like fried plantain, I don't know why I think about fried plantain, isn't the art or the concept of making food sometimes called cooking, right? Well, similarly for respiration, when your body makes energy, scientists came up with a word for that: respiration. So whenever you hear the word respiration, don't get frightened. It just means how your body makes energy. Fancy word. But then it have two types of respiration. There are two ways your body can actually make energy. There's one called aerobic, and the opposite of aerobic, which we'll get to in a little while, is something called anaerobic. So once again, there are two types of respiration, two methods your body can create energy: aerobic, and the opposite is anaerobic. Whenever you hear the word aerobic in anything, from now to no matter how complex that word is, whenever you hear the term aerobic, it just means oxygen is used. Oxygen is involved in the process. And where do we get oxygen from? Isn't oxygen in the air around us? When we breathe in and out. One of the main purposes of breathing is to get oxygen into your body. So let me explain how respiration works, okay? When you eat food, when you eat carbohydrates, your body will break down the carbohydrates into a simple sugar called glucose. You'll remember that from the last slide? And when you breathe in, your body will take in oxygen. And when there's a certain part of your body, I'm not going to call the part of your body as yet, because I don't want to confuse people. There's a certain part of your body, it's inside your body. When the glucose and oxygen combine, that part of the body will change it into three things: carbon dioxide, water, and ta-da, energy. So I know the chat is being flooded on the Zoom here, right? Everybody wants to know which part of your body does this magical process. Which part of your body could take this thing called glucose, which comes from carbohydrates, mix it with oxygen, and you get three things: carbon dioxide, water, and energy. All right? But here's the thing. You need to memorize this for me, this equation here. This is the equation or the concept for aerobic respiration. You notice oxygen is involved. Whenever oxygen is involved, it's called aerobic respiration. Okay? So do me a favor, take down, oops, 1 second here. Take down everything on the screen, right? And I will get to the part of the body that does this for you. Which part of the body is responsible for respiration, right? So I just want to put a little note here. We just get the glucose from eating, and we know we need to eat carbohydrates to get the glucose. Where do we get oxygen from? Breathing. When you breathe in and out, right? That's the whole point of getting oxygen into your body. Now, we have to do these things in detail. Huh? Right now, I just telling you, when you eat carbohydrates, you get glucose. The glucose will go down into your digestive system, but I have to eventually go into more detail. Like, how does your digestive system, how does your stomach and intestines actually take the carbohydrates and grind it up and break it down into glucose? Also, I have to go in more detail about breathing. I know you think breathing is a simple concept. You just go, you breathe in and out, but you probably never thought about how complex the process of breathing is. When you breathe in, how does your body extract the oxygen out of the air and send it to the part of the body that does respiration? Most people are too busy to think about those things, but I have to explain that. When you're finished taking down everything, just raise your hands. Right? A lot of hands are going. This is a short note, right? So it shouldn't take too long. All right. Let's get ready to go. That isn't a long note. So let's see what the next slide is about, right? So animals can eat to get their glucose. But where do plants get glucose from? Now, this is the part where we try to make a distinction between plants and animals. Now, animals are like tigers, lions, humans are considered to be animals, right? So we are animals as well. Now, if we wanted glucose, all we have to do is go find food that has carbohydrates in it. So all animals, including ourselves, well, let's go back to the caveman times. If we wanted energy, we would have to go find food that has energy in it. Maybe we would have to what? Go kill another animal and eat that animal and extract the carbohydrates and glucose out of it. Or we could probably go digging in the ground for some prehistoric ground provisions, prehistoric cassava, some prehistoric breadfruit. The point is, animals can physically get up and go hunting to get the carbohydrates to change into glucose. But what about plants? If a plant wants energy, it can't just go in the kitchen and bake bread. A plant can't say, all right, I'm gonna go hunting, I'm gonna kill a lion and eat the lion. It can't say, oh, I'm gonna hunt for some for some cassava and dig it up. Plants can't move, well, not move in that sense, right? They can't go hunting. But Jimmy has an answer. He says, my dear uneducated friends, do you know that when humans sleep, plants morph into their true form and go hunting for food? My mommy would never lie to me. So this is what Jimmy thinks. In the nighttime, plants grow legs and the trees grow legs and they go hunting for their carbohydrates and eat the carbohydrates and turn the carbohydrates into glucose. Obviously, this is slightly wrong, right? Slightly wrong. So, how do plants actually create or get glucose? Well, since plants cannot go hunting for food, it has to create its own glucose. It would be so cool if animals could do the same thing. It come like this. If one day you was hungry and you can magically say, okay, I hungry, I'm gonna magically make food. And you magically make a burger appear in front of you. Let's say you had that ability. Life would have been sweet, right? If you can magically manifest food in front of you. But plants kind of could do that. Now, it's not magic, obviously. Plants perform a certain process called photosynthesis. It's a big word. You probably need to learn to spell it, right? What is photosynthesis? In a nutshell, photosynthesis is how plants create glucose. Like the plant want energy, it hungry, it will do something to make the glucose. It doesn't have to go hunting for carbohydrates. So what a plant does, remember the atmosphere has carbon dioxide. The plant will absorb carbon dioxide from the air. It is used that its leaves, this how you say, the leaves of a plant absorb carbon dioxide from the air. It will also absorb water. The roots of a plant will absorb what? Water. And then a certain part of the plant, I'm not going to tell you which part it is as yet. I want to keep it simple. When the plant absorbs carbon dioxide and it absorbs water from via the roots, it will take sunlight. Remember, plants cannot live without sunlight. There's a very good reason. It will mix these three things together. It's like a little kitchen inside of the plant, right? It's located in the leaves of the plant. The plant will mix these three things and give you two things, glucose and oxygen. We really don't care about the oxygen too much. The point is, this is how the plant makes glucose. And once the plant makes glucose, it could convert the glucose into energy now via respiration, right? So in case you're wondering, you don't have to take this down, right? Now I told you there's a small kitchen area in the leaves of a plant, right? The carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight, they go into the leaves, somewhere in the leaves, and it mixes all three together. And you get what? Glucose and oxygen. And once again, that process is called photosynthesis. And once the plant gets its glucose, it could perform respiration to create energy. But anyway, take down everything on the screen. There's no need to draw the diagram underneath, right? That was just, I don't know why I put that. When you finish, just raise your hands, right? So far, you did two important concepts, huh? Respiration and photosynthesis. That's the two major things we did so far. Because no living thing can survive without energy. And the core of energy comes from glucose. Without glucose, plants cannot survive, and animals, including ourselves, cannot survive. Okay? When you finish, raise your hands and let's start I want to do a little card battle today, right? I think some of you all are familiar. Well, last time we had the evil snow cone versus the evil roti and whatnot. Okay? Don't forget to raise your hands so I'll know if you're finished. All right, you have about 20 more seconds and we're moving on. Right. Now, guys, we're keeping the equation on the screen simple, right? We're not gonna put the complex explanation. As I said, some of y'all are asking for the full chemical equation with all the chemical symbols and things. I'm not going to be doing that today, obviously, because I'll end up confusing the beginners, right? So let's keep it simple for the time being. All right, let's get ready to move on there. All right. By the way, for those who are doing HSB and integrated science, all you need is the worded equation. You don't need to know the chemical symbols for glucose and carbon dioxide. Or only people who are doing biology in Form 4 and Form 5 need to know the actual chemical equations. Right? All right. Oh, sorry. Let's get a game running now, right? Let's see here. So you all remember this card battle here, right? What up on the music just now. So there are four teams, as usual, in the school. There's red and blue and green and yellow. Now, if you look at the left-hand side, you will see the background is what? Blue and red. So all five characters to the left-hand side belong to the blue and red team. And all the characters for the green and yellow, if you look at the background, belongs to the right-hand side. So it's basically blue and red versus green and yellow. So let the battle start, right? At the end of the day, if whichever teams win, whether it's the left-hand side or right-hand side, each winning team will get 20 points at the end of class today. That's plenty points. All right, so let's start the battle. I'm getting music running here. Let me see. It's Evil Roti, Papa Boa, Zumas, Evil Snowcone, and Mr. Sorrel on the left-hand side versus Alu Pie, Pepper Sauce, Bread and Chana, Captain Kuruma, and Red Soul. Hey, what? Let me get some different characters. I think we had these exact characters last time, just now. Let me get different shuffle. This are a little bit different, right? The characters switch around a little bit. Some new characters. That cheese. Let's get the first fight on. Let's see who are the two people to fight. It's Bread and Chana versus Cheesy. Let the fighting begin. Oh, Bread and Chana for the red and blue team has won the first battle. Let's have one more battle. Let's fight. It's Shadow Benny versus Corn Curls. Okay. Let's see Corn Curls could outdo Shadow Benny here. Corn Curls has won. All right, not bad, guys. One character from each side has died, right? So it's even for the time being. All right. We will continue this later on. All right. Right. Let's move on. Right. So let's continue the story of how the plants, like what plants do, right? So here's the thing. We know plants need to create their own glucose. So if you look at the top here, this is the equation you just took down. Plants will take the carbon dioxide, mix it with water, mix it with sunlight, and you're going to get two things, glucose and oxygen. But remember I told you, right, that the only reason the plant is making the glucose is so that it could use the glucose to make energy. So as soon as the plant makes glucose, it will take that same glucose now and mix it with oxygen, and you will get carbon dioxide, water, and energy. You'll realize this is what? Respiration. This on top is photosynthesis. So you'll realize it's like you're making something, glucose, in order to use it. So the plant first has to perform photosynthesis, and after it performs photosynthesis to create the glucose, it will take that glucose and perform what? Respiration. The formula for respiration, this is aerobic respiration, right? It's the same formula for any animal. The respiration, the aerobic respiration formula is the same for plants and animals. The only difference is that plants have to create their own glucose via photosynthesis, but animals could go hunting for their own glucose source. Okay? Now, here's the thing. During the daytime, remember, for photosynthesis to happen, you need sunlight. Plants cannot perform photosynthesis without sunlight. But respiration doesn't need sunlight. So during the daytime, plants can perform respiration, and it can also perform what? Photosynthesis during the daytime. But plants could only perform photosynthesis during the daytime. That's when the sun is out. But when you hear nighttime comes, look at this diagram here, right? It cannot perform photosynthesis. So the only time a plant could produce or make glucose is during the daytime. But in the nighttime, it will be able to perform respiration because respiration doesn't need sunlight. So it doesn't matter if it's daytime or nighttime. Plus, plants, just like you, need energy 24/7. You think you could ever stop producing energy? No, the minute your body stops producing energy, you will die. You know why? Because for your brain to live and for your heart to beat, you need energy. Even while you are sleeping, your body performs respiration, waking or sleeping. Because the minute any living thing ceases or stops respiration, it will die within a few minutes. It will die, right? So you notice I have these symbols here. Plants, photosynthesis could only happen during the daytime. That's why I have this sun symbol here. And so I lose my train of thought there. Right, respiration can happen during the daytime or the nighttime, right? If you don't want to draw the symbols, you could write daytime here, and nighttime, right? But this is a pretty popular question, especially when a teacher bring in the exams, right? He might ask, he or she might ask you, what's the key difference for a plant during the day versus during the night? And the simple answer for that question is plants can perform both photosynthesis and respiration during the day, but at nighttime, it can only perform respiration. Why? Respiration doesn't require sunlight. Okay? Moonlight is not enough light. Right? Moonlight and sunlight is two different things, right? The moon doesn't provide enough light for photosynthesis. It just doesn't. Okay? Right, so take down the wording to the top. There's no need to draw the diagrams below, obviously. The main thing about this note that you're making, photosynthesis happens only during the daytime, and respiration happens anytime, day or night. Okay. When you finish, raise your hands. Now, the moon does reflect sunlight, but it doesn't reflect enough sunlight for it to be functional for photosynthesis. Okay, it doesn't. Okay, right. When you finish, raise your hands, and guys, I really try my best to pace the class, find out in between pace to move at a decent speed. All right, so people are finished there. A lot of people. We're getting ready to move on in about 10 seconds. Finish off what you need to. All right. Right. Let's get ready to move on. All right, so let's see what's going on in this scenario here. So let's go back to our hero or anti-hero or whatever he is, Jimmy. So it seems one of the key ingredients to making energy is oxygen. That's true. Remember, the type of respiration we discussed was aerobic respiration. Aerobic means it needs what? Oxygen. So this means if I take away oxygen, there cannot be any energy. He kind of right and he kind of wrong at the same time. I agree for aerobic respiration, you need oxygen. If you don't believe me, you can turn back in the notes. You see, for aerobic respiration, we need oxygen, right? But then this caveman who is running from this tiger, but even though the tiger is facing the other way, well, whatever. The caveman says, not quite so fast, Jimmy. You see, animals have a temporary backup plan in case they can't get enough oxygen. And it's called anaerobic respiration. Whenever you hear the word anaerobic respiration, it means no oxygen. Now, let me break this down into simpler terms here. Everybody needs a backup plan. I mean, energy is so important. Remember, without any energy, you will die. So it makes sense that your body must have a backup plan in case there is no oxygen available. That backup plan, like I said, is anaerobic respiration. So let's have a look at anaerobic respiration, right? Now, anaerobic respiration, you could find it in animals, or you could find it like in certain kind of microscopic stuff like yeast, right? Now, yeast is not a plant, right? But it is. I'll explain in detail. We'll explain what yeast is. Remember, yeast is this thing people is used to make bread. You just help the bread rise and whatnot. But anyway, more on that in a little while. Anaerobic respiration. What your body will do, it will take the glucose and it will directly, without any oxygen, it will turn it into lactic acid and energy. Yes, your body has a backup plan in case it runs out of oxygen. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why doesn't your body just always perform anaerobic respiration all the time? I mean, if your body can make energy without oxygen, why bother with with aerobic respiration? Why don't we just become anaerobic animals? Well, there's a little trade-off. Whenever there's always a reason why something is a backup plan. Do you really think the backup plan will be better than the first go-to plan? There's a reason you are the backup plan because you're not good enough. I mean, you might do the job a little bit, but you're still not preferred, right? So, anaerobic respiration in the process of making energy, which we want the energy, it creates something called lactic acid. Now, lactic acid is bad. It's toxic. It's a toxic substance, right? And I'm going to put the word toxic here, right? But we all know toxic means bad. And everybody here has felt the effects of lactic acid. I will prove it to you now, right? Let's say everyone here has ran a race. And sometimes you're running and you're just out of breath, but you keep running or you're exercising, you're out of breath, but you still want to keep going. Now, think about this. When I now said that you're exercising or you're running real hard, right? And you're out of breath. Key phrase, out of breath. Doesn't that mean you can't breathe fast enough? What does out of breath mean? It means You cannot breathe fast enough to get oxygen in your body. Your workout or your exercise routine is so hard that you physically can't breathe fast enough to get oxygen into your body to perform aerobic or normal respiration. So your body is deprived of oxygen. So then it switches to anaerobic respiration to try to create the energy due to the lack of oxygen in your body. But when it does that, it creates lactic acid. You ever exercise real hard, and while you're exercising, you start to feel pains in your muscles? Like sometimes the pain, you just feel a burn in your muscles. And eventually you just can't take the burning no more. You have to sit down and do what? Rest, right? Even the strongest, most fit person gets tired or feels that burn in the muscles. That burning is the lactic acid. That burning sensation that you feel that makes you shut down after a while. Okay? That's the drawback of it. Do you really want to live in a body that performs only anaerobic respiration? That means for your whole life, if your body is only running on anaerobic respiration, for your whole life, whether you're doing plenty work or a little bit of work, your body will produce lactic acid and your muscles will be burning 24/7. You really want to live a life like that? No. That is why anaerobic respiration is the backup plan. Also, it produces less energy. When you do anaerobic respiration, you get energy, but not as much as regular boring aerobic respiration. So your body really doesn't want to do anaerobic respiration unless it has no choice. Now, there are certain organisms like yeast that also perform anaerobic respiration, which means they can do the anaerobic respiration without oxygen. But in things like yeast, microorganisms like yeast, their, their anaerobic respiration looks a little bit different. You see, in animals, glucose is changed into lactic acid and energy. In organisms like yeast, if there is no oxygen, it will take glucose that it finds in the environment, and without oxygen, because it's anaerobic, it will change it into three things: ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. You notice there's no lactic acid. In case you don't know what ethanol is, this is alcohol, the same alcohol people drink to get drunk. And this is how you create alcohol. Or all those rum drinks and beers, and we call these things by wines and whatnot, right? Things with drinkable alcohol. They use yeast to make it. They take things that have a lot of glucose in it or sugars like apples and oranges, and they mix it with yeast. The yeast will take the glucose in the fruits because fruits have a lot of carbohydrates in it. They have a lot of glucose in them, sugars, and it will perform anaerobic respiration and change it into alcohol, carbon dioxide, and energy. Right? So also keep in mind that, like this caveman here, if he's running from that tiger, at first his body will do regular boring aerobic respiration because he'll be able to breathe fast enough. But if the tiger chases him for too long, he's going to get out of breath eventually, and its body will switch to anaerobic respiration, create lactic acid, and if the tiger doesn't give up, the lactic acid will eventually hurt so much the caveman will just fall down on the ground and become dinner. Right? So take down everything here, right? I want you to take down this note also, right? I know it's kind of a weird note, right? But it's actually letting you know that anaerobic respiration is the backup plan, right? Raise your hands when you are finished. All right. Should be on the way to finishing off there. Um, right, 20 more seconds and we're moving on. Right. Remember, if anybody on the YouTube channel wants to move across to the Zoom platform, you can. There's tons of space, right? All right, let's get ready to go. Let's see what else Jibby is up to, right? Our hero. Oh, let's try a few questions. All right, it's a good thing we're here because if we leave these questions up to Jibby to do, he would get probably all wrong. All right, anyway, let's go. I want you all to read this question and send the answer on the chat, right? A, 1A. I mean, not 1A. A marathon runner eats a large bowl of pasta. Have no idea why she's eating and running at the same time, but she probably likes to multitask, right? So a marathon runner eats a large bowl of pasta that night before a race. Oh, it's before the race. Yeah. Which of the following describes the primary journey of that meal? In other words, they're asking you what happens to that food that she eats. Think on it and send the answer on the chat. What's the answer? Everyone take a try. You don't want to be right. You just have to try your best. Right, answers are coming up. All right, let's see what here. So let's answer this question here. You don't have to write down these questions. You just need to do the questions, right? You just need to practice at this point. You see, things like, think about it. Whenever you're very low on energy, it have certain foods you just naturally be drawn to, eh? Like, and we all know that if you're real hungry, you're going to feel for that what? Pasta, spaghetti. You see, spaghetti is made from flour. Flour has a lot of carbohydrates. You will naturally be drawn to that, right? So a person who is about to run a race, don't get me wrong, you need some proteins, you need some fats. But a person who is running right now needs plenty energy. That's the purpose of it. So the answer is B, the complex carbohydrates. And we'll go into this more detail. I know some of you are seeing the word complex. There are different types of carbohydrates that have complex and simple. For the time being, complex carbohydrates, it is carbohydrates. Spaghetti has a lot of carbohydrates. So when she eats that plate of carbohydrates, which is spaghetti, her digestive system will break it down into glucose. And you know what she's going to do with the glucose. Going to use the glucose to perform respiration for her energy for the marathon. All right? Right. Now, I'm going to be real specific, right, about what we taking down here, right? Because I know I tell you not to take down anything, but I don't want you to take down the whole thing. You're only going to take down the question here and the correct answer. And then you're going to take down the explanation. Do not take down anything else. The wrong answers, you do not need to take down the wrong answers. You just need to know the question, the correct answer, and why that is the correct answer. Right? Don't move too slow, guys. When you finish, raise your hands. Let's not take more than a minute and a half for this. All right, so a lot of people are finished. I think you have about 30 more seconds. All right, let's go. That's more than enough then. And not bad for a beginner's question. It wasn't that hard, right? It will get a little harder. Right, that there is the digestive system. Everyone should know the basics because I remember in primary school it have what? It just make you learn off the different parts of the digestive system. You see your stomach, you see your intestines and stuff like that, right? So a patient is struggling to digest fats effectively. Which enzyme producing pair is likely being affected in their digestive system? Now, yeah, most people, right? Let's see if this. I want to make sure this one doesn't have an error in it, right? I think I have a mistake. All right. You are not going to get this one correct because I didn't do the theory for this one as yet, right? But I'm going to explain it in detail. So when I'm done explaining, you'll be like, oh, okay, I understand the answer. All right. Whenever you eat fatty foods, right? Whenever you eat fatty foods, what are some examples of fatty foods again? Things like butter, things like cheese, chicken skin, right? When you eat the skin of a chicken, it has a lot of fat in it, okay? Remember that when you eat fatty foods, your body has to take the fats, right? Let's draw a little diagram here, right? Let's say this is a big block of cheese here, right? Filled with fat in it, okay? That's a big block of cheese. So you throw it into your mouth, you chew it and whatnot. What's going to happen? Your body is going to have to take that fat and break it up into much, much smaller particles, right? Let me draw some much smaller particles here. Draw some dots here, right? It has to break it up into smaller parts. These smaller parts are called fatty acids and glycerol. Remember, we had that on the first slide today. So once again, just to give you back the story, when you eat fatty foods like cheese, your body has to break it up into smaller, useful parts like fatty acids and glycerol. But how does your body do that? You think there's a magic elf inside your stomach and intestines that chisels down the chewed cheese and butter? No, there's something inside that lives inside your intestines and have these things that live inside the intestines. These orange dots are supposed to be these cool things that live inside your intestines, right? These magical cool things are called enzymes. I haven't done it as yet, right? But let me explain what enzymes do. They come like the magical elves. Whenever the fat comes into the body, into the intestines, the enzyme says, guys, we have some work to do. We have to chisel down the fat and change it into fatty acids and glycerol. And these guys are called enzymes. Now, there are many different types of enzymes, just like dogs. If somebody said they had a dog, any next question would be, what kind of dog you have? If somebody says, hey, it have enzymes here, your next question is, what kind of enzymes? It have thousands of different types of enzymes, okay? The name of the enzymes that are responsible for breaking down fat, the name of the enzymes that do that are called lipase. He's a particular type of enzyme that is made specifically for breaking down fats into smaller pieces called fatty acids and glycerol. Now, let's be very clear. Lipase can only attack and break down fats. It will leave protein alone and it will leave carbohydrates alone. It's only made for attacking fats. Okay? So take down this question, and we're going to do this in real detail, not this week, probably by next week or the week after. Take down the correct answer, which is C, and take down the explanation, right? You're going to realize that whenever you teach a topic, you can't expect the questions to always be 100% representative of the work we do. Sometimes you get a question that's off what I am teaching, but you all know me by now. If we reach that point, I will just explain it, right? Right, so when you finish, let me know. Right. Eventually, we'll do all the different types of enzymes you could find in a digestive system, right? Yeah, there are a few that you need to learn of. We only covered the first one today, lipase, who only attacks fats. Right, before we move on to question 3, we'll try a card battle, right? All right, let's get ready to move on there, right? Let's have a little card battle there, right? Let's have a little card battle. I think it was even 4 and 4 on each side. That's the wrong one. All right, let's go. Let's get a card battle going here. All right, 4 on each side. Let's see who's next. Aloo pie from the red and blue team versus salt plume from the yellow and green team. Oh, aloo pie won. Oh, Lord. My team, which is on the right-hand side, is losing, but let's have another battle. Let's see if we can narrow it down a little bit. Bon Pelori versus Hibiscus Henchman. Oh no, Hibiscus getting beat up here. Ah. Let's have one more before we move on. Corn curls versus pepper. Ah, yes, I think corn curls getting the upper hand here. Come on, corn curls. All right. Not bad. Three for the red and blue team, and only two are left on the green and yellow team. All right. We'll continue that in a little while. We'll see who eventually wins. Another question. Why must the body break down large macronutrients into smaller molecules before they enter the bloodstream? Like, why is it necessary, like for carbohydrates? Why we have to break it down into glucose? For proteins, why we have to break it down into amino acids? And fats, why we need to break it down into what? Fatty acids and glycerol. Why? Think on it and send the answer. All right, answers are coming up, right? But the answer for this one, I know the class is divided. Some people are saying B and some people are saying D. The answer is B, right? B. So you're taking, I'll explain it just now. You have the question here, the answer, and the explanation. B, they use some kind of complex language, but I'll break it down for you. You're seeing this word diffuse. You see, when you eat food, it needs to be absorbed into your blood. Diffuse means, in a nutshell, right? That's the process of absorbing the nutrients from the food. Now, if the food particles are too large, the blood just cannot absorb it. All nutrients have to end up in your blood, whether it's vitamins, whether it's glucose, whether it's amino acids or fatty acids and glycerol. It has to be absorbed into your blood. That's the main aim. But if the particles are too large, your blood is cannot absorb it, right? And of course, you're wondering probably, but sir, why are large particles? Why can't it be absorbed into the blood? And why are only small particles allowed to be absorbed into the blood? I have not answered that question as yet. You had to give me till next week to break down this word for you all in more detail. It comes from the word diffusion, right? And diffusion or the absorption only happens when the particles are small enough. But I will explain that how diffusion actually works. Hopefully by next week we'll reach there. Right? So take down the question, the answer, and the explanation for the time being. All right. And guys, this is not ending speech, right? But I might need to overclass at 10 minutes early, right? Something kind of come up. So I just, but we almost to the end of class anyway, but it's just like 10 minutes early. I'll just need to end class, right? So please forgive me about that, right? Well, I can't avoid it right now. All right. So when you finish writing down everything there, raise your hands. And before I leave here, I want to make sure we figure out who is the winner and we update the points for today's class at least. But we did quite a lot today. We did a decent amount, I would say, right? So raise your hands when you finish. Once again, I really apologize for this. Sometimes things just happen and on the go, right? Classes normally end at 10:45, quarter to 11, right? All right. All right, so let's finish out this battle quest, update the points, right? Oh, and don't forget, guys, I think I know Miss has social studies at 11:30. Obviously, try to come, even if you're not doing social studies and you just want to come and learn, feel free, right? Miss starting from scratch, right? All right, so let's see here. Let's continue this battle here. Brian Chana versus King Zabuka. Come on, Zabuka, you can do it. I think he has the upper hand here. Bye-bye, Brian Chana. Let's go. Bon Pelori versus Conkles again. Not again, come here. Come on, Conkles getting like Bon Pelori, oh Lord. Oh no, guys. My team, well, the green and yellow only has King Zabuka left. 2 versus 1. Let's see if King Zabuka could do this. Don't let us down, King Zabuka. It just got the upper hand. All right, guys, it's 1 versus 1. Bon Pelori versus King Zabuka in the finals. It was pretty close. Come on, King Zabuka, do that Bon Pelori. Get you like this. Oh no! Oh my god, Bon Pelori, boy. King Zabuka didn't make it, guys. Oh. So it seems that today's winner, right? Today's winner is the red and blue teams. The red and blue teams won today, which means the red team gets an extra 20 points. Bring them up to the first team to cross 100. They are on 104 points. They're in first place now. And the blue team, who also won today, 20 extra points, which brings them up to 66, which means that green team is in last place once again. I don't know what to say, green team. We just made to lose. Who knows? All right. But it was nice not being last for a couple days. So guys, that's pretty much it today. That's today's standings. Okay. Red first, yellow second, blue third, and green team fourth. Guys, I'll see you all tomorrow for maths class at 9 o'clock. Don't be late. Have a good evening, guys. Have a good one. Right. I have to log off really fast, guys. Like I said, I have a small little emergency here to take care of. All right. Take care, all. Have a good day.